Welcome to Conversations with South Point Hemp, where we extract the BS from cannabis. I'm your host, Annie Stanfield, with my co-host, Professor D. How you doing today, Professor D?
I am absolutely terptacular. Terptacular. Because we are talking about something dear to my senses and dear to my heart.
Aw.
Terpenes.
Oh, that's lovely. Yes, talking terpenes today.
Talking terpenes. They're just something that's found all across the plant kingdom. You've probably encountered them on a daily basis without even noticing. If you've ever smelled lavender, pine, or mangoes, you've encountered terpenes.
Yep, and if you've ever used essential oils, if you've dabbled in that loveliness, you're already dealing with terpenes.
Yes, you are. And just by chance, cannabis has a few of them.
There's a few in there, yes.
I think identified to date, 146 terpenes are found in the cannabis plant.
Yes, now they're not all 146 in each plant. There's different strains that have varying levels.
If there was, I want that strain.
I'm sure somebody out there is working on the genetics to get as many as they can in there.
Right.
So yeah, if you've used lavender to relax, or if you've used peppermint for an upset stomach, or even drank orange juice in the morning, then you've discovered the benefits of terpenes and you've used them for their benefits. And so we're going to be talking about the different terpenes that cannabis has and some of their benefits today.
That is absolutely correct. Just kind of let's get into a little bit of botany science with this.
Alrighty.
So the terpenes actually found in cannabis plant are at the end of the trichomes. So the trichomes are the tiny granule, sticky, bulbous-headed resin of the cannabis plant.
All that globular goodness.
Globular goodness that contains not just terpenes, but all the cannabinoid information of that strain as well. So whenever you see these super frosty, nice nugs that are just full of resin, well, that's going to be where your cannabinoid information is actually found. And your cannabinoids. And at the very tip of each one of those little bulbous heads is a terpene sac.
Nice.
Yes.
The terpenes that are in there are responsible for like attracting pollinators and repelling some insects. So depending on the terpene profile, that's what gives that specific cannabis strain its smell.
Or taste.
Yes.
Taste, yep. So yeah, terpenes kind of mature and do this different things. Stresses, proper nutrition, a handful of different things will help push terpene production.
Like the temperature.
Temperature plays a huge role as well.
When you're growing your plants outside, the wind, the heat, and all that, because terpenes are very volatile.
Yes.
And so if there's a lot of rain, a lot of wind, that'll destroy the terpene content outside.
Yep. Yes.
But so the nutrients, the fertilizers, all of that will determine the levels of terpene that a strain has.
So with these terpene effects, the cannabinoids, it gives this beautiful entourage effect, as we've learned from multiple cannabinoids having the same effect, but the terpenes play a huge role in this as well.
Absolutely.
So it's not always just about sativa or indica or a hybrid or something for how it interacts with you, because a lot of it's going to play with the terpene content actually found. If it's more energetic or if it's more relaxing, or, there's even terpenes that interact with your CB2 receptors.
Right. The full spectrum, when you're talking about the entourage effect, they've shown that CBD, full spectrum CBD, is 4 times more potent than CBD isolate alone.
Yeah.
So when you have a full spectrum product, you can use less of it to get the desired effect, whereas if you're going to use an isolate. So that's why a lot of times your gummies that you buy will hit differently than if you smoke flower or have live resin or something like that, because the terpenes with that entourage effect help bump up the effects.
Help tremendously.
Yep.
And, certain people have certain tastes that they really love. I'm a huge fan of the limonene terpene. And we'll kind of get into these a little bit. I'll kind of shout out my favorites because when you experience them,
right,
very well.
And strains, there's like a top 3 of the terpenes that most strains will have to some degree. The limonene was one of them. The myrcene and caryophyllene are the top 3 that the majority of your strains are going to have those.
Yeah, so your Caryophyllene, it helps reduce anxiety tremendously and depression. It's also one of the prominently found terpenes, like I said, all across the plant kingdom, found in hops.
Right.
Which flavors beer and everything else. Close cousins of the cannabis plant.
Yep.
Actually, most people don't realize. And kind of has that hops, rosemary, black pepper, cloves. And it also is one of the few that helps activate the CB2 receptor in your body.
Yep. Yeah. One of the best benefits of the caryophyllene and some of these other ones are the calming.
Yes.
A lot of these terpenes have calming effects.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're wanting to find a strain or something that will help with your anxiety, help with depression, and help calm you down, myrcene is one. Limonene, caryophyllene is one.
Caryophyllene.
So you shouldn't have a hard time finding a strain if your main purpose is to find something that's calming. Because the majority of these terpenes have a calming effect. With myrcene, it's very calming and sedative.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a musky herbal scent.
Yeah. Found commonly in mangoes. That's the easiest I normally explain to people, is found a lot in citrus, but also found prominently in mangoes.
Yep.
And helps. It's anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, and antifungal. It helps tremendously with arthritis, joint pain.
Yep. One of the things with myrcene is that basil, thyme, bay leaf, you're going to find that a lot of the herbs that have these calming terpenes are commonly used when you're making chicken soup. When you're wanting a nice, relaxing, when you think of, good food.
Yeah, that's kind of been the main focus when I was trying to put these down. Is, to a lot of people, this is going to be the first time they're ever hearing about terpenes in cannabis.
Right.
But these terpenes are found all over the plant kingdom. So I was like, okay, well, what else is it like that we can compare it to? Where else is it found in nature?
Right.
Where else would be common with it?
Yeah, because you're cooking with terpenes all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And, you're by your nose and by your taste.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even as a former beer maker, the hops was extremely crucial of what our final product would always be.
Right. So another aspect that people, when they come in and they're looking for a certain product, they're like, what helps with pain? And we know that there's CBD and, the cannabinoids that help with pain relief, but the terpenes also play a huge role with that entourage effect of helping with pain. So some of the terpenes can mimic cannabinoids and activate CB1 receptors where, pain perception is dealt with a lot.
Yeah.
So there was a 2021 study done that combined terpenes and cannabinoids, and it found that the terpenes amplified the pain relieving effects.
Right.
So that was one of the ways how they proved the entourage effect was these studies that showed that the terpenes boosted the pain relief.
Yeah, about 2021, I was making a lot of dabs, cannabinoid, terpene-rich dabs. I did a lot of studying.
Oh, yeah.
Personally.
Another one for pain, humulene.
Humulene,
Yep.
yes.
It's the earthy, woodsy smell. And it's found in basil, clove, and coriander.
And ginseng.
Yes.
It is one of the main terpenes in ginseng, and I was very geeking out about this because I'm a huge fan of ginseng. So it's extremely uplifting, energizing, revitalizing, much like the ginseng.
Mm-hmm.
And just really known for its medical properties and benefits for a long time.
Right.
And, of course, it's found in God's plant of cannabis.
Absolutely. Another one of the terpenes that's good for pain is geraniol. And it's a floral, fruity, and citrus. It's also in geraniums.
Oh, yeah. So mosquito.
Right.
Yeah.
The terpene helps repel insects.
Yes.
So that's why you see the mosquito plants and all that stuff out there in at Lowe's and whatever. It's because those terpenes in that plant help repel the insect. But they're also found in rose oil and lemongrass.
Nice.
And cannabis. So there's that one and linalool.
Linalool, which is normally found in lavender.
Right. It helps with calming and it helps with pain.
So calming. Helps alleviate stress. Yeah, like I said, the lavender fields have always been known for the relaxation and the stress-free and everything else. But yeah, found prominently in cannabis, all kinds of different strains. So a lot of times when people are looking for that calm or to take, for stress and everything else, it's a good terpene to look for.
Right. You can go to your bud tender or wherever and say, hey, What's something that's high in linalool, for
Yeah.
pain? What's something high in humulene? Or pinene is another one.
Oh man, the pinene. Oh man,
That's a good pain one.
It is great. So, train wreck for me back in the day, super high in pinene, and yeah, pine tree.
Yeah.
It's a antidepressant, but yeah, your pine trees is very piney, pine needles with a little bit of spice. Great antidepressant, has anti-cancer properties, and an extremely great anti-inflammatory.
Yep, and pinene's really good they found for migraines.
Nice.
So people suffering from migraines want to look for something to help with that pain relief. Find a strain that's high in pinene. So that's another good one. I think Jack Hare is one of my favorites.
Yeah. That's
with
another one.
Pain and all that. Yeah, that's one of mine. If I had a favorite one.
Yeah, and that's for me, that limonene, super lemon haze back for a long time, that has been one of my dominant sativa flowers. So,
yeah.
And just kind of due to that terpene profile.
And then along with pain relief and calming abilities, terpenes have excellent antiviral properties. Mm-hmm. So around COVID, they actually did studies where there were found a couple of terpenes that were actually good at killing the COVID virus.
Yeah. Yep. I remember reading the study, like, can cannabis cure you? And it's like, well, it's because it's predominantly the terpene.
Yep, pinene.
Profiles. Yeah, pinene.
Yep, pinene is one of those terpenes that they found for SARS-CoV-2. And the eucalyptol was another one.
Yeah, minty, menthol, antibacterial. Antifungal, extremely great for great respiratory medical properties, that exfoliant to help get that mucus out. It also helps with memory, I've just recently discovered, and it helps reduce mucus in your whole system, and for asthma, pneumonia sufferers, stuff like that, bronchitis, COPD, and even tobacco irritation.
Oh, wow.
It's anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. Eucalyptus is where it's prominently found. There's a 2014 study, and the neurochemistry research found it to reduce inflammation caused by amyloid beta peptides, which have to deal basically with Alzheimer's.
Oh, nice.
Which is a major factor for Alzheimer's. It improves cognitive performance, and it tends to be found in super silver haze, headband, Bubba Kush, and even Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a big fan of that one. It helps with the lung expansion, just for respiratory.
And with the antiviral properties that some of the terpenes have, everything I link to essential oils, because that's how I discovered them from being a massage therapist, was getting familiar with essential oils, and that's how I learned about all the benefits of terpenes. But the big antiviral ones are like found in thieves. So if you're familiar with thieves oil, and during COVID, that was another big one that I would diffuse it at home.
Oh yeah, that's go-to for me,
because it's the plants clove, lemon, cinnamon, eucalyptus, and rosemary. So all the plants that we've talked about with the terpenes there, that is why. If you're not familiar with thieves, the story is that during the Black Plague, that the grave robbers never got the plague.
No.
Whenever they were robbing graves and stuff, because they would dip their bandanas or whatever in this concoction of herbs and spices.
Yeah, same with the medieval, the big old giant bird mask. The plague doctors, that's what was in there.
Yeah, they'd stuff the herbs down in the
stuff, and that's what they were breathing to try to help them from getting the plague.
Right. And so when people know that, you can use these plants to help clean your air with, essential oils and diffuse it and stuff like that.
Do you think they used that fragrant cane back then? Do you think that might have been part of, maybe one plague doctor out there was like, found the fragrant cane, cannabis plant. I was like, oh man, this contains a great amount of pinene.
There you go. Possibly. So yeah, that was the antiviral benefits, and we've talked about the pain ones and the calming. And so another reason why people come in looking for help is to help with inflammation, because that goes right along with pain. And when something's inflamed, you're uncomfortable, you're not feeling good.
Right.
And one of the dominant terpenes that helps with inflammation is myrcene again.
Yes.
So, that's your hops. So, I wouldn't recommend drinking beer.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, certain hops can definitely contain it as well. Yep.
Right. And just like with the calming, the majority of the terpenes help with inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need to go get too specific, that you can find limonene, pinene, humulene, caryophyllene, all these that we've already talked about will help with inflammation.
Yeah.
So.
And then Borneo. Borneo is kind of one of my favorites. It's kind of found in the teak tree family. If you've ever smelled teak tree oil, that's that's the active terpene there. It's kind of a mint, metallic, woody-ish, kind of scent. But it's an anticoagulant.
Oh, nice.
So, it's kind of something new a little bit for terpene properties. Of course, anti-inflammatory, but also really with the anticoagulant properties, it really helps with circulation and eases pain. Helps get the oxygen, your blood moving and oxygen around, and that kind of help out with respiratory health as well. Help carry that oxygen, that red blood cells. Used in Asian medicine forever, for thousands of years, and also used as an insect repellent.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, these things are like multitaskers.
Yeah, they're powerhouses.
Yep. Terpenes are amazing once you start getting into it, but we're trying to just give you a gloss over, an intro to terpenes, kind of get you familiar with what they are, where you find them, and how they're like in everything. And it's not just about the smell and the taste, it's also about the benefits that you can get on top of the cannabinoids. So another reason that people come in looking for things, one of the big things with cannabis medicinally, is cancer.
Yeah.
And so there's terpenes out there that have been shown to help reduce tumor growth. They've been shown to kill cancer cells, prevent them from growing, and keep things from metastasizing. So there's all sorts of benefits with the cannabinoids and the terpenes to help with cancers. And limonene is one. There's a 2021 study.
You say limonene, I say livenene.
But yet the limonene in this 2021 study was shown to have anti-tumor properties in breast cancer.
Yeah.
So they've done these studies on these specific terpenes with cancers and everything. And so I can, if you want to join our Facebook group later, I can get you copies of these studies and show you where they're at. I don't want you to take our word for it. We can give you the sources and the studies.
This is just an introduction.
Right.
always do your research as well.
Then limonene also, they did a study in 2008 that it caused apoptosis, or cancer cell death is what that big word means. It kills cancer cells in pancreatic cancer. So limonene, is a great terpene. I mean, and that's, pine sol, all your lemon cleaning products, different things like that. That's why you're attracted to kind of some of those smells.
Right.
There's, humulene again was a 2019 study that cell death in multiple cancers.
Nice.
So
and the great thing is the ones we're talking about are very prominently found in cannabis. Like limonene is the most popular terpene profile in cannabis, so. I'm
trying to think. There's, to some degree, I've seen it in just about all the strains, but of course, that's kind of the terpene I look for.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You gotta be careful too, because a lot of times limonene gets used for cleaning in the cannabis industry. So sometimes it shows up. It's just because sometimes it's actually a carryover.
Oh.
Because it actually works extremely well for cleaning up hash or cannabinoid material, because it's a terpene solvent.
Another one we haven't touched on yet is nerolidol. If you're familiar with flowers like neroli or jasmine, and that smell with ginger, lemongrass, just kind of that kind of vibe, that smell, that's neroli and nerolidol. And there was a 2022 study done on osteosarcoma cell death and colon cancer cell death. There's just so many different, terpenes out there they've studied that helps with cell cancer death. That's why a lot of people will smoke cannabis, and different things for cancer, because it is so beneficial in killing the cancer cells. So one of the last kind of effects that I want to hit on with terpenes is a lot of people While some like to look for calming and to help them sleep, other people, hey, I just need something, kind of help me wake and bake, kind of get up, energize me, get going throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's terpenes that if you, need to kind of jumpstart your day, we can,
Need that caffeine terpene. What's that?
Pinene is one.
It is very uplifting, yeah.
Yep, it helps. It helps with focus as well.
Oh, extreme focus. Yeah.
So yeah, if you need to get up and get going and keep your day focused, pinene.
The cushes tend to be very, very rich in pinene.
Oh, nice. And then limonene, of course, is another one. Caryophyllene. So you got two of your big ones. Mm-hmm. Humulene and terpenylene. So terpenylene is one we haven't touched on yet.
No, very floral.
Yep.
Yeah, very flowery.
Got a nice fresh smell.
Yeah.
Yep. It's common in tea tree and apples.
Yes.
So if you're attracted to the tea tree and the apples, and lilacs is another one of the flowers.
Nice.
So yeah, that's terpenylene. So those are some of your uplifting and energizing terpenes.
So kind of, with terpenes, like I said, super dear to my heart. Love them. I'm always sourced them out. I got extremely good at cultivating them. I was always kind of known for terpene profiles of my plant material. But then when I got into extraction, it's crazy because when you do extraction, depending on what you're trying to do with the terpenes is going to be how you extract. So, like hydrocarbon extraction is extremely popular because of the terpene preservation, more or less. So, you get a really nice concentrate and you also pull a lot of the terpenes with it and everything else. Because these things are so volatile. Like a little too much heat, a little too much cold, being too rough with the plant material. All kinds of these factors play into on, it's all about the preservation, more or less, of them. So, we do supercritical CO2 extraction as well with a lot of the South Point stuff. And that is another way to really save the terpenes as well, just due to the CO2 extraction not being so harmful,
I want a shirt that says "Save the Terpenes."
Save the terps, right?
That's going to be my next t-shirt.
And then the same with water extraction. Whenever people are talking about rosin and stuff along that line, making bubble hash, that's what you're trying to do is preserve just the itty bitty little tips of these trichromes and the terpene profile.
Right. And so when people are buying products in the store and when they're buying their edibles, most of the time, if it's like a distillate or something like that, it's going to be stripped.
Yeah, now distillate's stripped.
Of the terpenes, yep. So most of your edibles, unless they've added terpenes back in, you're just going to get that THC or whatever, that cannabinoid that's in there. That's the effect you're going to get.
So normally where you find the most prominently is anything that's live resin or live rosin. And be really careful, too, in the industry. A lot of people claim that, but it's not always. Normally what they're doing is they're introducing in live terpenes that have been pulled, and it's not necessarily always trichomes. So they use an isolate or something, and they kind of backflare with terpenes and be like, oh, well, it's live. A lot of it's just manufacturing, but be careful with that.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell a difference normally, even almost at looking at it. But definitely smoking it. I mean, most of the stuff on the market at this point is a lot of that, to where they're pulling off the terpenes with hydrocarbon extraction or something along that line, and then sometimes they crash out. And there's a lot of different things, but yeah, terpenes matter.
Yeah,
so much.
And one of the things out there is because terpenes never get talked about. Back in the day, before we knew all about the terpenes, the saying was that the sativa is your upper, and the indica your couch, and that helps, which we know more now. We know better.
Yeah,
we know that's not the case,
and that's a lot of land race talk too. That's what it was before we started
the original,
like crazy.
Yes,
yeah. But a lot of that is also due to the terpene content prominently found in indica, sativa, or
right, because the terpenes are going to tell you whether or not it's calming and put you to sleep, or whether it's going to wake you up and keep you going. That's what's going to determine it, not whether it's the indica or the sativa.
Right.
Because in the horticulture, agricultural world, cannabis sativa will tell you where it's from and it's growing. It's going to be the tall tree-like.
Right.
normally longer, thinner leaves.
Yeah, and normally it's going to express certain cannabinoids and certain terpene profiles specific to its region.
Yep. And then cannabis indica is normally in your Kush Mountains in the Middle East, and indica is going to be a shorter, bushier plant with the fatter, wider leaves.
Yeah.
So the sativa and the indica tell me as a plant nerd kind of the growth habitat and where they're found.
Yeah.
Doesn't tell me anything about necessarily what, effects they're going to have.
Yeah. And as we know, and then there's a third one.
There is the third one.
Yes.
The cannabis ruderalis.
Yes.
That is normally up around Russia and Siberia, colder, shorter days.
Yeah.
So
anybody, when they're looking at genetics, these are known as the autoflowers.
Right.
Which most autoflowers on the market at this point they're a hybrid of the Realis with the indica or sativa plant.
Right. Just about everything out there is a hybrid of an indica and a sativa.
Really at this point, yeah.
Yeah. So you're either going to have a sativa leaning or an indica leaning, but
they're normally known as dominants.
Right.
Sativa dominant or indica dominant. But, I mean, there's still land races out there. They're still pure, but what happens is sativas take forever to flower. Indicas have a shorter flower season. Same with the autoflowers or Realis. They're shorter. So a lot of times people, in the black market world, it was about how much can it get out. So a lot of these long flowering sativas have been bred with indicas and stuff like that, and it's kind of changed their flower cycle, trying to get quicker. But then there's also sativas that finish super fast too. So yeah, there's most indicas finish pretty quickly though, as far as flowering date. So that's kind of the big vital part about this is where this plant originated out and developed into. Basically how long its actual grow season and flower time it actually had.
Yeah. So when you're wanting certain relief, of pain or inflammation, or you want to help sleep, you want to help stay awake, whatever effect you're looking for, you need to focus on the terpene profile and the terpene content, and you go and you find the product that has that terpene profile.
Right.
And that's how you're going to narrow down, is this going to help me? Am I going to get relief from this?
Right. And then next is cannabinoid makeup.
Right.
What's my cannabinoids look like?
Right, because they work hand in hand, so, that whole entourage effect.
All part of the equation.
All part of the equation. Well, we thank you guys for joining us today. We hope we didn't get too in-depth on this one. We're going to expand on individual terpenes. Next time, we'll hit one at a time, so we can kind of do a deep dive into those.
Yep.
If you have any questions, if you need resources for any of the studies or anything we've talked about, you guys can come over to our Facebook group, Conversations with South Point Hemp. Join the conversation, ask your questions. We'll be happy to answer them and help get you the sources if you guys would like to do more research on your own. But we thank you for joining us, and we hope to catch you on our next episode.
For sure. Till the next episode. Smoke weed every day.